Warning: as this video deals in part with really controversial political figures, it will have some of my own personal political views in it. If you are easily offended by this, just know that any hostile trolling comments will be blocked. My channel, my rules. Also, even though this video talks about Disney resorts, it is meant for an older audience, and, as such, contains humor that may not be appropriate for children. Hello, welcome to Farcical Moments from History, where I look at various historical events that, as ridiculous as they sound, really happened. In this episode, we will explore two events, one in 1959 and the other in 1973, in which the infamous American politician Richard Milhouse Nixon made prominent visits to Disney resorts. These were visits that were either farcical due to numerous mishaps that occurred, or in how they represented absolute absurdity. On July 17, 1959, Disneyland experienced its first massive expansion in the 4 years that had occurred since its grand opening back in 1955, with the opening of 3 groundbreaking attractions in Tomorrowland. The first of these was the Matterhorn bobsleds, which was not only the park's first roller coaster, but was also one of the first roller coasters in the world to have a tubular steel track. The second of these was the submarine voyage, one of the world's first rides that guests experienced underwater, even though the submarines themselves were really just highly themed boats with portholes below the waterline. The third of these attractions was the futuristic-looking Disneyland monorail, which happened to be the very first monorail ever built in the United States. As part of the grand opening of these attractions, Walt Disney invited his personal friend, and fellow communist infiltration conspiracy theorist, Vice President Richard Nixon and his family to officiate. While the dedications of the Matterhorn and the submarine voyage went off without a hitch, the same was definitely not true when it came to the monorail. According to Imagineer Bob Gurr, who oversaw its construction and testing, it had only had one successful test run, and that was the night before its grand opening. Even more disconcerting, in the numerous failed test runs it kept catching fire. Despite this, when Nixon and his family arrived at the monorail hours before they were supposed to give their official dedication for the cameras, Walt invited them to take a ride on it, with Gurr himself driving it, as the lack of numerous successful test runs with the monorail had left Disneyland with a lack of professional trained monorail drivers. So here we have a new vehicle system that has barely been able to work without posing a serious safety hazard. And not only is it still open to the public, but for its maiden run, the Vice President of the United States and his family are on board. As if this weren't ludicrous enough, it was only after Gurr was well underway in the monorail's maiden voyage that he, Walt, and Nixon realized that the Vice President's Secret Service detail had accidentally been left behind at the monorail's boarding station. This prompted Nixon to give his own opinions about the competency of the Secret Service with, well, let's just say, some not very Disney-friendly four-letter words. This made Gurr doubly anxious, as he realized that he had just accidentally kidnapped the Vice President of the United States and his family. And he also knew that the proper apparatuses for evacuating the monorail in case it caught fire again had not yet been installed. To Gurr's immense relief, the monorail managed to do a complete lap without anything going wrong. As the monorail slowed upon the return to its station, Nixon's daughters cheered, "Again! Let's go again!" and it picked up speed to go a second lap. As the monorail picked up speed again, Nixon turned to see his Secret Service detail trying and failing miserably to run alongside the monorail so that they can jump inside of it. Such a sight caused Nixon to roar with laughter as the monorail disappeared from its station. After finishing another successful lap, which was only the third such in its history, the monorail returned to the station. After Nixon and his family left the monorail, they turned back to see that his Secret Service detail was now seated inside it. As Gurr recalled decades later,
it was an unbelievable situation, and I thought later, this is the palace guard that guards the White House?
As Nixon and his family left to explore other parts of the park, Gurr was approached by German engineer Conrad Miller, who worked for the German monorail company Alweg that had assisted in the construction of the Disneyland monorail. Shaking with anger, Miller yelled at him,
"Mr. Bob, in Germany we spent 7 million marks in 7 years and we do not let the public on the train! You Disney idiots! You get it running one night without it catching fire and you put your vice president on it!"
Later that day, Nixon and his family returned to the monorail to officially dedicate it in a televised ribbon-cutting ceremony. Even this moment, during which time the monorail itself was not operating, turned into a farce, as Nixon and his family found that their ceremonial scissors were not working, prompting Walt to subtly use a small pair of scissors he had in his pocket to help cut the ribbon. With that, Nixon's experiences with the monorail that day came to an end. As a fun little epilogue to this story, after spending the afternoon and early evening training another person how to operate the monorail, Gur's shift ended at 9 p.m. As he and his wife were driving out the Disneyland parking lot, now the site of Disney California Adventure, he saw a large bluish flash emanate from where the monorail was, prompting him to say, "Honey, don't look back," as he drove away. At this time, the monorail had shorted out and was stuck near the Matterhorn with its emergency brakes locked in place. On board in the front car were Walt, the president of the General Dynamics Corporation, and a little boy who, well, couldn't hold it anymore. All of whom had to wait for maintenance workers to manually unlock the emergency brakes one at a time so that the monorail could be towed back to a place where it could be evacuated and undergo maintenance. One assumes that if he had heard about this event, Nixon probably would have laughed at the misfortune of Walt and company too. Despite these troubles, the monorail would have its teething issues fixed and would become a beloved attraction in Disney park history.
Unfortunately, the next time Nixon visited a Disney resort ended up being far more sinister.
One of the most infamous presidential speeches ever given is perhaps Richard Nixon's "I am not a crook" speech given on November 17, 1973. At this time, Nixon had become fully consumed by the Watergate scandal, obsessively attacking the free press, and determined to prevent any damning evidence of his involvement with the various illegal wiretappings and break-ins done by loyalists of his in order to either discredit critics of him or ensure his re-election in 1972. Less than a month before this speech, he had attempted to purge the Department of Justice in what became known as the Saturday Night Massacre. In this purge, Attorney General Elliot Richardson resigned in protest when ordered to fire Special Prosecutor Archibald Cox, who had been appointed to lead an independent investigation into alleged White House involvement in the break-in at the Democratic National Committee's headquarters in the Watergate complex in the summer of 1972, and who, interestingly enough, seemed to be a real-life version of a Jimmy Stewart character.
Well, then my question, sir, was how could you expect to succeed in this job? How could you expect to succeed?
Well, I thought it was worth a try. I thought it was important. If it could be done, I thought it would help the country. And if I lost, what the hell?
Mr. Cox, let me ask you, excuse me, Mr. Cox. The reporter's over here.
I'm sorry. I'm very sorry. Yes.
Following Richardson's resignation, Deputy Attorney General William Ruckelshaus was fired by Nixon when he too refused to fire Cox. Finally, Solicitor General Robert Bork agreed to fire Cox and have his office seized by the FBI, but promptly resigned afterwards. A decision that would later cost him dearly in his bid for an appointment to the Supreme Court during the administration of Ronald Reagan. Not only did this attempted purge lead to mass condemnation around the nation, but Nixon's failure to also order the firing of those who had worked with Cox meant that his investigative committee would continue with another special prosecutor, which would help to set the stage for Nixon's ultimate downfall less than a year later.
Therefore, I shall resign the presidency effective at noon tomorrow.
Now, I know you're probably wondering, what the damn hell does this have to do with Disney parks? Well, not only was the speech ridiculous and how it was completely contradicted by Nixon's own actions just weeks before, but it was also quite farcical in terms of the venue it took place in. Go ahead, guess where this speech took place? You'd think so, but no. Not exactly, but it did take place in a location that's associated with thousands of people visiting in order to have a really good time. In actuality, where this infamous speech occurred ended up being the Contemporary Resort at Walt Disney World. I'm not kidding.
As I mentioned before, Nixon had a close friendship with Walt Disney, and had even enjoyed friendly relations with the Disney Company in the years following his death. It is also worth noting that Disney World itself had opened during Nixon's presidency, complete with an animatronic of him in the new attraction, the Hall of Presidents.
With this in mind, one can't help but laugh at the utter absurdity that must have also occurred that day.
People gotta know whether or not their president's a crook. Well, I'm not a crook. I've earned everything I've got. On a side note, have you tried any of the attractions here? I know you journalists will find kindred spirits in those ghouls in the Haunted Mansion, if you'll pardon the pun. I definitely appeal to the great silent majority to go watch the Country Bear Jamboree while here. There you'll enjoy some silly bears playing some good wholesome country songs. Songs like that one about how we need to discipline the unruly youth of today.
Mama, don't whoop baby fur. I think you should shoot them instead.
And that one from that Big Al character about how using violence in the streets leads to very bad results.
And a great big puddle of blood on the ground.
I also really enjoyed those silly foreigner birds in that Tropical Serenade show. What? Oh, excuse me. One of my aides needs to hand me a note for a second. Alright, who's the communist who put handcuffs on my animatronic in the Hall of Presidents? Because there will be hell to pay when I get my hands on him. Stop snickering! I'm the president, you loathsome communist mother!
Ah well, at least that was the last time a disgraceful US president ever tarnished a Disney park.
I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the office of
President of the United States, and will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. So help me God.
Thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please remember to like, subscribe, and ring the bell. Also, follow me on Twitter at PCNHGuy. If you want to help me make more videos similar to this, or you just want to support my channel, maybe consider contributing to my Pop Culture and History Guy Patreon and get a shout out in my future videos. Just as long as your username is something that won't get me demonetized. Again, any hateful comments will be blocked. Have a nice day.